And joining us now, very privileged to be joined by Air Chief Marshal Fali Homi Major, the only helicopter pilot to be the Chief of Air Staff, the Chief of the Indian Air Force. Someone who has left a long legacy for pilots and someone whose word is counted on by aviation watchers everywhere. Air Chief Major, a great pleasure to have you here on Battle Cry. Thank you so much for your time. Your opening thoughts, sir, on a very significant ball that has been set rolling by the government for the Prachand light combat helicopter, a made-in-India asset, that could be ordered in large numbers for the first time. That deal appears to be in sight now, sir.
Thank you for having me, Shiv, and I'm indeed delighted to hear about this news of the 156 Prachand helicopters for the Indian Air Force and the Indian Army. And I think it is the right time for this helicopter to be inducted into the armed forces in large numbers.
Yeah.
Given our area of responsibility of both the Air Force and the Army, and the huge spread we have for using the very wonderful flying characteristics and the weapon load this light combat helicopter carries, I think it is great news for all aviators.
Yes.
Of course, as you mentioned, this is going to take a little time by the time the contract is signed and the serial production starts. To me, it is actually a blessing in disguise because all these little chota-mota issues which the HAL was facing, they've got enough time now to iron them out.
Yeah.
And I have just a few points to make about this helicopter. And we need to tread this path very carefully and very meticulously so that you have an asset with you which will be of invaluable value to
Yes.
in operations starting from the deserts of Rajasthan to the heights of Siachen and elsewhere.
Right.
And given the agility of this helicopter, and given the weapon load it carries, there has to be a seamless and flawless cycle of production after ironing out all little issues so that it stops. You don't have to worry about, supply chains, etc. These are things
Yes.
which need to be sorted out at the outset. Having said that, the core concentration on this helicopter, as far as the HAL and of course the users is concerned, are the weapon systems on board, because without
Yes.
those weapons, this helicopter is of no use. And the fire control architecture. Now, we must also understand that I believe there is about 40% or so of, I don't know the exact count of indigenization in this helicopter.
Yes.
While that's a good beginning, we should not, right at the outset, soon as production starts, go in for large-scale indigenization, but we should do it incrementally so
Yes.
that we get enough time for our own manufacturers, designers, etc., to settle down and keep introducing the correct and quality items. We
Yes.
should not hurry this process up.
Very,
Then I come to, as I said, weaponization is very important.
Yes.
The entire fire control architecture, etc. So far, from what I have heard and what I've seen in the aircraft, having flown it twice, that it is quite elaborate.
Yes.
But again, we must ensure that the supply chains and the manufacturing cycle is maintained, because
Correct.
we need something like an 80% serviceability of these helicopters, because
Absolutely.
these helicopters operate in small detachments spread all over the country.
Yes.
And therefore, the supply chain has to be very, very proper for them to be available on the tarmac and for flying almost 80% of the aircraft. Now,
Chief, I just want to ask you
other
one small interjection and one question, branching off from what you said. Your experience as a pilot As a pilot, what kind of advantages are there in having an indigenous made in India machine, sir, as opposed to something that's imported where you might have to depend on an outside supplier for parts, etc.? What are the advantages for a pilot and a warfighter?
To begin with, an indigenous helicopter of this class is a godsend as far as I'm concerned, because
Yeah.
it is entirely up to you how you exploit this helicopter, what you add, what you remove, or what you do with it,
Yeah.
without the problem of sanctions and supply chain problems with conflicts around the world.
Right.
Uh, we must, that is why I said, while we must aim for indigenization, now this particular aircraft, helicopter, very wonderfully, is perhaps the only type in the world which operates with a fairly good weapons load at the altitudes where we want it.
Yes.
Because I'm quite sure that even other helicopters, attack helicopters manufactured around the world, do not have the hot and high capability which this helicopter has,
Absolutely.
and the weapon load that it can carry at those altitudes. Now, that's a huge advantage of being our own and home designed helicopter to meet our requirements, which is very difficult to find all these aspects in a helicopter which you import,
Yes.
because
True.
they make it for their requirements, whereas we made the LCH for our own requirement, and that makes a
Yeah.
huge difference. Also, sometime back there were a few, design issues with the
Yes.
groove, which I believe have been sorted out now.
Correct.
And by the end of June or something, all aircraft would be modified with the, uh, uh, newly designed control systems.
That's right.
Now,
Yes,
I'm
sir.
quite sure that to a very small extent, even the Prashant, the LCH will be at an advantage once these modifications are done, because given the type of role this
Yes.
helicopter is going to undertake for the Air Force and the Army, what is required most definitely is survivability of the
Yeah.
helicopter, and
Yeah.
secondly, the agility at all altitudes and under all conditions of weather and otherwise, and terrain. Now, I think so far, with the 15 helicopters which both the Air Force and Army are flying,
Yeah.
they are quite satisfied with its performance. But again, my main emphasis is supply chain and tarmac availability of these aircraft at 80% and above. That will
Absolutely.
not what make this helicopter a prize winner for the Indian Armed Forces.
One final question, Air Chief. And the prescription that you've given of how this needs to be done is very, very valuable, and I hope that the decision makers are listening very carefully, because you bring the weight behind your words is not just as a helicopter pilot, but someone who has led the Air Force, so you know exactly what you're talking about. But like you said, you've also flown the Prachand twice, and you've also flown helicopters of different types all across the world, Air Chief. So I wanted to ask you, just in terms of your experience, of course the Prachand will be improved. I'm sure there will be more refinements with larger numbers entering service. But what was the experience like as a pilot, getting in behind the stick? What was it like flying this Indian helicopter? What was your experience?
Shiv, what caught my eye the most was the excellent agility of this helicopter for all kinds of combat missions, and most importantly, for evasion tactics, etc. The this helicopter can really be thrown around,
Yeah.
and also the visibility in this helicopter for both the pilot and the weapons operator is absolutely fantastic. It's very well designed, and given the fact that it's an adaptation from the Dhruv onto this
Yes.
attack helicopter version, I think we've done a damn fine job in the country. And as I said, while we've got the design right, the tweaking which is required, minor tweaking,
Yes.
We have enough time to do it. And once the serial production starts, there should be a flawless flow of helicopters in large
Yes.
numbers into the armed forces because they need them very, very urgent.
And
But otherwise,
I'm
it's a
yes.
fantastic helicopter to fly. I mean, of course, I just did 2 sorties. That's not too
Yeah.
much of flying, but you can get the sense of the aircraft after my experience
Undoubtedly.
that this helicopter is a good machine and
And my,
worth
and my
exploiting
big
to its
takeaway from
fullest.
speaking to you, Air Chief, apart from all the things that you've said, which matter a lot, is that this is a blessing in disguise. You know, even if it has taken a while for this big order to, sort of roll out, and there's still some time left for an actual order to be concluded, a blessing in disguise for HAL and all the other suppliers to really refine the supply chains and make sure that everything rolls out right from the get-go, and therefore the refinements will be much, much smoother. We're looking forward to a great legacy, a great induction of these large numbers of the Made in India Prachand. Air Chief Marshal Fali Major, thank you so much, as always, sir, for your wisdom and your words here on Battle Cry. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiv. Thank you.